I'm
You
that
decided to
early.
show up again, did you?
I did. I'm back for a little bit.
Well, that's nice. You weren't here last Wednesday night, were you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just not here on Sundays. I'm here on Wednesdays.
Oh, okay. I was going to give you a map here, but since you were here,
Yeah,
a set of maps. Since you were here, you have.
I was. Hey, Jean.
Hello, Kathy.
Hey, Donna.
How are you?
Hello,
Good. How
Donna.
are you?
All right.
Hey, I got to go to the zoo today, so I'm happy.
Oh, you are. And in this wind, you went to the zoo?
But remember, once you actually get down in there.
That's true. It's protected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not too bad.
Oh, so are you watching the giraffe that's not ever going to have her baby?
I saw some of that. I didn't see one who was expecting. I didn't really look close.
Yeah, there's one in New York that's been like on video cast
Oh,
now
yeah.
for
Yeah.
probably 2 months or
Yeah, I've been
longer.
watching it, and then the news said tonight that one in the United Kingdom.
One in Miami.
Oh, Miami. Okay.
Miami had one because I don't know how I'm getting these news feeds. I'm like, I didn't sign up for any of this. And I got one the other day and I went, oh, she finally had her baby. And then I looked and I was like, oh, that's the wrong place. So she took center stage.
I saw the new wallabies.
Aw.
They are cute.
Hello, Mary.
Yeah. What else do they have new out there, Donna? I haven't.
It was just really nice.
Do what?
It was just nice walking.
Oh, yeah. We were going to go the last time the kids were here, and it was kind of the day like today, and we decided that was probably too windy for a 4-month-old.
Yeah.
The older one could handle it, but 4 months old is a little young. So we went to the art museum instead, or the
Science Museum.
Omniplex thing next door. Yeah,
Science Museum.
Science Museum. Well, 1,000 years ago, Donna, it was called Omniplex.
Yeah.
And now they've
I
changed
remember
it.
that. We've been here long enough that I remember that.
I mean, so when I looked it up even, I looked up Omniplex and it still popped up. And it's like, oh yeah, it's the Science Museum now. But see, I'm still the Cowboy Hall of Fame too, instead of the
Yeah.
Western Heritage,
Yeah.
whatever it is now. I was like, I don't know. When I'd have to book field trips for school to the different places, I put in the old name because that's what I know by. But I always found them.
So many years and years ago, we came to my mom with Lindsay, and then we came up here to do something for the zoo and all that kind of stuff, not realizing, went to the Science Museum, not realizing 10 years later we actually live here. And I've gone to the zoo so a bazillion times now.
Yeah.
So much that,
It's called the Cowboy Hall of Fame and Western Military and Western Museum of
Okay.
History.
Actually, they even changed the name of that. It's no longer called the Cowboy Hall.
It's not even that anymore.
Yeah, it's something heritage, I think.
Yeah, Western Heritage, something
Yeah.
or another.
Western Heritage Museum.
Have you been, Donna, to the zoo in Fort Worth?
Fort Worth or Dallas, and that was 10 years ago.
No, the one in Fort Worth is really, really nice. It's a nice zoo. The kids don't live very far from there, and we've only gone once. They've gone a couple of times, but it's a
If I
fun.
lived closer, I'd go more often, but
Yeah.
I live in Surrey Hills, so this chick's, this one, I was going over that way anyway today, so. Well, actually, I was going to Edmond, but hey, that's kind of close.
Yeah, just
It's
another
so
swing the
easy.
other way. What were you headed Edmond for?
Good
Get
to
my
go.
hair done.
Do what?
I get my hair done
Gonna hit
by
record
Joanna.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds super.
Because I don't think Sean's going to be here tonight.
Well, holler at me sometime when you're in
But you're
Edmond.
in a
I'll eat
good,
you
I've
for
got it
lunch.
set for that.
Or breakfast or whatever.
You got a set for
Oh,
what?
that's right,
I've
you're
got it
being
set for
major.
that. That way
Exactly.
people at home can see you.
I'm
and talk.
retired,
Yeah,
Tommy's just
okay.
tired. That's what he says, yeah. Yeah.
Well, see, Byron has 2 more weeks, and I keep planning all this stuff, and he's like, would you at least let me have a little bit of time to breathe before you start planning my life? I'm like, no, I got things to do.
Yeah, but honey, do listen.
Things to do, places to go, things to see.
Then when
Tommy
you
has,
retire, you're just going to harass everybody, aren't you?
I'm going to stay busy. I'd go all the time. I think he's going to put stop to that, though. I can still go. I guess he just may not be with me.
Sarah wanted me somewhere for lunch, and then we can go to the zoo again.
There you go. I'll do that. I'll do it.
I was going so often that when they had those donkeys out there where you can't go down, he'd come running up to where I was and start talking to me. Judy
Oh.
came with, she actually saw it. She had a picture of it. He was, yes, now he wouldn't recognize me.
Oh, you don't know. He might.
You know, but I was going there.
They have memories.
A
Who
lot.
was talking to you?
A donkey.
A donkey?
He was hee-hawing at me.
Was it a male or female?
I don't know. I think it was a male, so he was flirting with me, I guess. Yeah. But I have a picture of it.
That's
Yeah, Judy
cute.
took a picture of it.
There's the male.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Hopefully we'll have a few more folks coming in.
I know.
Last Wednesday night, we were full.
I don't think the church where we went to church in Phoenix last Sunday even has Bible class anymore. Because
Really?
they have so few people. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yep. I only counted 2 kids. One was a baby. And then that was it.
Well, Stephanie is still recovering from her surgery. They had to make 4 holes in her belly because one stone was so large that they couldn't get it out of the 3 holes, which they normally do. So she's recovering, but she's doing well. John Nip, he was supposed to have seen the doctor yesterday, I think. Jensen, don't let me forget, I need to talk to you about Maxine. She now would like to have food every other day.
Ah, okay.
Florence is now teaching Bible class, so she won't be in here.
How's Stephanie doing?
Huh? She's done well,
She's doing well?
yeah.
She's at home, right, tonight?
Yeah, she's at home. Well, she went home Monday. It's just outpatient
Ah,
surgery.
yeah, but then she's not here, is what I'm saying.
No, she won't be here. But we are going to start in Genesis chapter 13 tonight, but I do have, at the end of class last week, John came up to me and he asked me about verse 16 of chapter 12. And I said I had never thought about that, but it kind of just bumped over me. But now I thought about it, and I did some researching, so we're going to talk about it a little bit.
John won't be here tonight.
We're not talking about John Nip, we're talking about John Vincent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
What
We
verse
got,
was it?
we got too many Johns around here, Pat.
We do have a
Now,
few.
which John are you talking about? Me.
Sorry for being late.
That's okay. Better late than never.
I live too far away.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of ironic.
And John Vincent isn't here yet.
Sometimes that makes it easy.
No, I was kind of waiting for him because he's the one that asked the question.
Uh-huh.
I told him Sunday night, I said, I have an answer for you. He says, you gonna make me wait till Wednesday night? I said, yeah, because everybody else might want to know too.
I don't remember what the question was. What was his
I don't
question?
remember
Do
either.
what?
What was
Well,
his
the question was, and he may not have asked it during class, he may have asked it after
It
class.
was after
He did have a
class. It
question,
was
but I
after
don't remember
class.
now.
Okay. So I'll tell you what the question is here in a little bit, but let's go ahead and have a prayer. Our most loving Heavenly Father, we thank Thee so much for this day and for the many blessings that You've given us. We thank Thee for the moisture that we've been receiving this past week. And we thank Thee, Father, for this privilege we have of being able to come together to be able to study Thy Word without fear of persecution and to be an encouragement to one another. We ask, Father, that You be with us and we can continue our study in the book of Genesis, that we might have a full understanding of the purpose of this book, that we might keep in mind the Messianic line. And we ask, Father, that You be with our members who have physical ailments. We know of our brother John Nip, our sister Maxine Light, and our sister Stephanie Abbey. And there are probably others, Father, that we don't know of, that we would ask that You would be with them as well, that they might be restored to their health. And we would ask that You would use us as instruments to reach out and help them in any way that we can. These things we ask in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen. Come on in, Karen.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I might have to answer the question without him here. Anyway, if you look at Genesis chapter 12, verse 16. You remember that this was after Abram and Sarai had been in Egypt. The Pharaoh is sending them out. In fact, in verse 15 it says, the princes of Pharaoh also saw her and commended her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. I'm sorry, he wasn't taken out at this point, because some commentaries would suggest that this next verse is kind of a dowry for Abram, for Sarai. Because remember, Abram said that Sarai was his sister, not his wife. All right, notice particularly verse 16. He treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys, and camels. Now, to my knowledge, this is probably the only place in the Scriptures where you see that word donkey used in two different senses. Males separated from females. Usually when you see the phrase donkeys, it just includes both male and female. So John Vincent asked the question, he said, why do you think God separated the two here? And I thought about it for a while, and I looked at what some of the commentaries had to say. And so I have an answer based on a compilation of commentaries and based on my experience with donkeys. And I have had experience with donkeys. It's interesting to note that if you go to, let's see here, if you go to Matthew the 21st chapter, Jesus had told two disciples, he sent them, they were at the Mount of Olives in verse 1, and he sent these two disciples, saying to them, go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her loose them, and bring them to me. And if anyone says anything to you, you shall say, the Lord has need of them, and immediately he will send them. Be fulfilled, which, or all this was done, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, tell the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, lowly and sitting on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. So the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded. They brought the donkey and the colt, laid their clothes on them, and set him on them. And a very great multitude spread their clothes on the road. Others cut down branches from the trees and spread them on the road. So, the first question I would have is, why do you think that God specifically mentioned male donkeys and then later on female donkeys? Yes, Donna.
So that he could breed them, make more donkeys?
He what?
So he could breed them?
So he could breed them?
Breed them. More,
Oh, breed 'em?
Have more.
Yeah.
Was one better than the other?
That's a good assessment.
I'm close, I'm close.
Pat?
Well, why would they put their clothes on both of them? Both of them at the same time?
Well, the prophecy is that he would come into town on a coat. Okay? Now, the scriptures never say how big the coat was, but the coat was still a young donkey with his mother. A coat, remember, is a male. A filly would be a female when you're talking about the young donkeys. All right? But now, when you're talking about mature donkeys, a male is called what?
I don't want to say it. He's an ass.
No.
He is too.
They're all, I mean, that's a word for all donkeys.
You're
okay?
sure?
Yes. Male, though, is called a jack. Now, what is a female? What is a female called?
Really?
A female is called a jenny.
A Jenny.
Yes.
That was with mules.
Now,
and not
for you
donkeys.
ladies, you might appreciate this. Because in most people even today, the reason that we have mules today, which mules can't reproduce, okay, but you take a horse and you breed it to a female donkey. Female donkeys could carry and do workload much more considerable than their own size and weight. They were work animals. The male donkeys were somewhat lazy, somewhat stubborn. And the only thing the male donkeys want to do is breed. You need the male donkeys.
Make more
But-
female ones.
The more profitable part of this, when you look at this verse, is as you go down the line here, sheep are important for food, oxen are important, male donkeys are important for breeding, but notice male and female servants. Those are important. The Pharaoh gave him male and female servants, and those are important. But female donkeys, very important, and camels, those were the work animals. And those were the more valuable animals when it comes to working and everything. This is, and I might be wrong, if you know another verse, Ron, let us know, but I think this is the only verse that you will find male donkeys separated from female donkeys. Any other time when they mention donkeys, it's referring to both, male and female. With the exception of Matthew, when Jesus told his two disciples, gave them instructions to go in, they would find a female donkey with her coat. Okay? Now, obviously, the coat is going to go wherever the female donkey goes. My experience with donkeys, and to give you an idea how strong they are, most of you've been to livestock shows, I would assume. And you've seen the young boys and girls leading their steers around with a halter. It's easy to train a cow or a steer to lead with a halter. And I've done that many times. It's not easy to train a male donkey with a halter. When I was in high school, we brought a bunch of wild donkeys from Utah into the feedlot. And I decided I was going to take one home and train it and ride it and make a wagon for it and everything. So I took my halter, put it around his head because it wasn't trying to run away from me and everything. They'll just stand there all day long. And put it around his head and tied it to the back of the pickup. I figured I was going to break that donkey and he was going to lead. That donkey locked his front feet into the ground and he broke that rope.
And he didn't forget that he broke it either.
Well, he didn't run off.
Once they do that, though, it's harder yet.
Well, what we did, I had a buddy, and I had him get on the donkey, and I stood behind the donkey and I'd pinch that donkey in the hindquarters. And he'd jump forward about 3 paces each time I pinched him. But that's how stubborn they are. But the jennies, you can train them, and the jennies are good work animals. If you were to go to Grand Canyon today, what do they use? They use the donkeys as pack animals to go down into the canyon.
They're sure-footed too.
Yeah, because they're good workers. And that's kind of my compilation of why they were separated here. Because it demonstrates the value of what the Pharaoh was giving to Abram for Sarai. Any thoughts?
I was just thinking of I guess the growth of Abraham's faith, because many years later when Sarah died, he would not allow the Hittites to give him land to bury her. He insisted on buying it. So
Exactly right. Exactly right. And we'll look at that because I know exactly what you're talking about, Mary, and that's a good point. All right, any other thoughts? If not, we'll move on to chapter 13. And in your handout is page 31. Let's see. Mary, you weren't here last Wednesday, were you?
No.
I didn't think so.
I have that.
You have these maps?
Oh, no, I don't have the maps. I'm sorry.
Some of them asked for copies of the maps that I've been showing on the
Oh, okay.
PowerPoint, so I just printed them off for you. All right, so you're on page 31 in your handout, and we talked about the introduction a little bit about Genesis or chapter 31, but the title "Land Rights" is what we're looking at here, and we're actually down into the lessons that we're going to look at. Capital letter A: it is possible for a rich man to be a faithful servant of God, and so that's what we're going to look at today. Let's see here, I bet that won't work. I didn't think so.
There it is.
There we go. All right. All right, that's what we're looking at right now. So we look at verses 2 and 3 of chapter 13. And it says, well, let's read verse 1 and start from there. Then Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, or Ai. As it says here, he was a wealthy individual, beyond normal standards of wealth. Wealth was largely measured in this situation, and that's why we went back and looked at chapter 12 and verse 16. It was measured in livestock and servants, both of which Abram had. But it was rare to find someone with silver and gold, especially someone like Abram who was a nomad. Only the livestock can be attributed to the gifts of Pharaoh and also some of the servants. Obviously he brought some servants with him, but obviously the Pharaoh gave him some servants. So by mentioning silver and gold then, the narrator points to the Lord as the ultimate one to bless Abram in this case, though the immediate cause may have been various sorts of commercial transactions. As a nomad, he could have possibly traded with other individuals, other tribes, but it was rare to find someone in this situation. And so, precious metals afford a measure of security and protections in times of famine. And we'll see some famines here in Genesis. So, it goes on to say, and he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel. The Hebrew indicates a journey by stages, which is what you would expect of a wealthy nomad when he has many herds, many animals. And remember, Lot's with him, and so Lot has a lot of animals too. And they had to go from one watering hole to the next watering hole. So it was kind of a slow and laborious effort to ensure that the animals are not overdriven. The animals had to eat as well as they were traveling through this area. So we look at, well, let's see here. Okay. I didn't put this point up, but look at verse 4 again. Verse 4 says, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord. The faithful God always calls on the name of the Lord. Upon completing his journey, Abram stops to worship. And there's a good lesson in that for us, because we should always make time to worship God. And so this word echoes chapter 4, that we would go all the way back to chapter 4 of Genesis, where men first called on the name of the Lord, and it indicates that there was a continuum between the roots of authentic worship and the practice of Abram. Remember, one of the reasons why God told Abram to get out of the country is because the country he was in, his family and everything, was idolater worshippers. Lot and Abram was faithful servants of God, so he separated them. So this is the second time such an incident is noted in Abram's life. And you go back, and I put Genesis chapter 12 and verse 7 up there. Isaac, why don't you go ahead and read that for me?
Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him.
Okay. So this is where he is, this altar that he built, and it is the beginning of a pattern which will pervade Abram's life then. Worship in every place that he goes. Even when he knows that he has made a mistake, he returns to God. And of course, this demonstrates his faith. It also demonstrates the fact that Abram was a human being, that he was not perfect, that he did make mistakes, and he will make mistakes, but he never turned away from God. And so it's a good lesson for us. Any comments through verse 4?
Well, in order to return, he had to acknowledge that he made a mistake.
Yes. Yes. You know, it's interesting you say that because we're going to talk about that in the invitation tonight. All right, so you look at capital letter C of your handout. Much strife develops due to the unmet needs that individuals have. All right, so let's look at verses 5 through 7 is what we'll read here. Ron, why don't you go ahead and read that for me, if you would.
Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Now the land was not able to support them, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. The Canaanites and the Perizzites then dwelt in the land.
All right, so we can only see then, as we've already talked about the fact that Lot was a wealthy man, and so you would expect that when you had that much wealth, that many livestock that had to be taken care of, that there would be strife. Primarily because that land would not support both of them. And so this led to the strife as a result of it. And in addition to their presence taxing the capability of the land, they can scarcely afford such a divisiveness when they are surrounded by potential enemies. Remember, they're nomads in this area. The people that lived in that area, that was their permanent residence, and they were potential enemies. So the Perizzites probably denotes a social class of Canaan's descendants, a section of the population living in the open country. If so, then, the Canaanites may represent the citizens connected with the walled cities. Together, they compose the indigenous population that restricts the pasturage and watering holes, making it impossible for the kinsmen to sustain the fertility of their flocks and herds grazing together. As nomads and everything, they were dependent upon hospitality, and sometimes that did not occur. And so there was strife among the two families, if you will. Any comments through verse 7? All right, looking at your handout, we're going to go to, actually, let me put it up here. Okay. We're going to go to capital letter E in your handout, and also F, a combination of those two, 8 and 9, all right? Kathy, you want to read verses 8 and 9 for me, please?
So Abram said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right, or if you go to the right, then I will go to the left.
All right, notice how gracious Abram is here at this point. Who was the oldest of the two, Abram or Lot? Abram was the oldest, wasn't he? Who was the leader of the family? Abram was the leader of the family. Who was the land promised to? Abram. It was promised to him. So he could have easily insisted at this point then on his rights and taken the first choice, couldn't he? But he didn't do that. So this passage then serves as an excellent illustration of the contrast between faith and sight. Left and right. That was a phrase used there.
Go to the right, and I'll
Yeah.
go to the left.
In verse 9, if you go to the right, then I will go to the left. In an East-oriented culture, direction is determined by facing east. The left and right would indicate then, you go to the north, or if you go to the south, then I'll go to the north. Okay? For Abram, the whole land is the land of Canaan. Verse 9. Abram had set before Lot, though, the option of choosing whether to pasture his flocks in northern Canaan or to graze the southern Canaan region. And it's noteworthy to note that Abram offers Lot his choice of the whole land, which should be somewhat surprising since the Canaanites occupied the land. This reflects... Yes.
Is this the Canaan that the Israelites were to take when they came out of Egypt?
Yes, eventually. This reflects Abram's early confidence then in the Lord's promise of the possession. He said, go to a land that I will show you. He's still looking for that land. He hasn't stopped searching because he trusts God and he knows that eventually God will tell him where to stop. That's the kind of faith that we should have as Christians as well. Any comments through verse 9? All right. Verse 10 then. You want to read that?
And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord. It was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt as they go toward Zoar.
If you look at your handout, capital letter G, it says youth often makes selfish and unwise choices. And this is exactly what Lot did. He made an unwise choice, and it was a selfish choice. Because the area is compared to the garden of the Lord and to Egypt. To the eye of sight, the Jordan Valley was like those two places that were watered by rivers and never had any lack. So what did Lot do? He chose the best. By contrast, though, the central ridge where Bethel and Hebron are located depend upon the Lord to send rain. And that was the direction that Abram went. And this again shows the gracious offer that Abram made here. Verses 11 and 12. Jensen, you had a comment?
Lot made one more mistake. If you take the best of the land, who else is going to be there?
Well, that's true.
Everybody's going to be there, so he has that to deal with.
Well, and so
He
they
paid
end
the
up,
price.
they end up in Sodom and Gomorrah. And we'll talk about that a little bit here in a moment. So that's a good point. Any other comments? Look at verse 11 and 12. Then, Jensen, read that for me.
Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. And they separated from each other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom.
Okay, notice here then the distinction that is made between Abram, who settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot, who settled among the cities of the valley. It's clear from verse 12 that the territory chosen by Lot lies outside the borders of Canaan. And further east has already become synonymous with trouble. Adam and Eve journeyed east after their sin. Cain settled in Nod, which was east of Eden. The people of Babel migrated from the east. So everything from the east always symbolized trouble. Abram's tent is pitched in Bethel at the altar to God. Lot's camp is eastward toward the ungodly city of Sodom. Youth sometimes makes the worst decisions. So when we look at the journey here, this was the journey right here. Lot goes across the Jordan, right down here, and where is this? Sodom and Gomorrah, supposedly. We've never been able to find any evidence of Sodom and Gomorrah. They've actually gone to the bottom of the Dead Sea. And when God said, I'm going to utterly destroy this, it was utterly destroyed. And so there's no evidence exactly where it is, but it is suspected to be down here in this area. The Dead Sea had nothing but salt in it. It's so salty that a person could actually float. Nothing lives in it. Abram, on the other hand, he goes down to Hebron. And he stays there in the land of Canaan. Okay? But Lot chooses over in this area. So, we look at verse 14 then. And in your handout, we're rated way down to capital L. God confirmed his land promise to Abram. But what I put up there was actually from the verse. Look at 13 and 14. Donna, read that for me, please.
Now the men of Sodom were wicked exceedingly and sinners against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot has separated from him, now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward.
Okay. So, it is no accident then that the renewal of the promise is expressed on this occasion with special emphasis placed on Abram's offspring. Abram's heir had just been separated from him, Lot. Okay? Remember, Abram and Sarah had no children at this point. So the possible heir would have been Lot, but now he's been separated. Lift your eyes and look, the scripture says. The location between Bethel and Ai is in fact a spectacular lookout point, and already the implicit contrast between Abram and Lot is extended. Abram on the heights, Lot down in the sunken plain. This was the direction the two took. Any comments through verse 14? All right, so we look at verses 15 through 17. Karen, you want to read that?
Okay. For all the land which thou seest to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then may thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for unto thee will I give it.
Okay, through Christ then, the promise has been exalted from its temporal form to its true essence. The phrase, the dust of the earth, that we see there in these verses, particularly verse 16, as the dust of the earth. At the parting of Lot, the promises regarding Abram's offspring are made more explicit and concrete, even to the point of saying that his descendants would be innumerable. But it is still not specified that his offspring would come from Sarai. It goes on to say, in verse 17, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. This act was to symbolize his legal acquisition of the land. Walking around the perimeter of a piece of property was a common legal ritual in the ancient Near East for taking final possession of land. Almost similar to our Oklahoma settlement and everything when we had the Oklahoma rush. Do what?
The land run.
Yeah, the land run. I wanted to say stampede, and I knew that wasn't right.
That's pretty much what it was.
It was.
It was.
But they went out and they staked their property. They walked the perimeter. They put stakes at the perimeter, and this is what they did in the East as well. And so this is what God told him to do. We look at verse 18 then. And verse 18 is capital letter M on your handout. Mary, you want to read that?
So Abram moved his tents and went to live near the great trees of memory at Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord.
The terebinth trees of memory. What do you think they are?
Palm tree.
Oh,
What countries?
A palm tree.
Palm trees?
I would have
That's
been
just a
oak.
guess.
It's a good guess.
Was it a tree at all?
Most,
Is it true?
no, most commentaries that I looked at suggested that it was oaks.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Some 20 miles south of Bethlehem became the chief center of Abram's movements, near which he would purchase his only property, the burial cave of Machpelah. And he purchased that. It was not given to him. Mamre is the Amorite who seeks security in an alliance with Abram. Look at Genesis, the 14th chapter, and look at verses 13 and then verse 24. Isaac, I guess we're back to you.
Verse 13 and then 24.
Yes, please.
Then one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, an Amorite, brothers of Eshcol and a brother of Ashner, and they were allies with Abram, except only with the young men have eaten, and a portion of the men who went with me, Ashner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion.
Okay. So, this was Mamre, and he's the Amorite seeking security and alliance with Abraham. We go back and we look at verse 18 then, again, and you see that phrase there, and built an altar there to the Lord. Again, we see Abram's priority here. In arriving in a new location, we see the acknowledgement of God and worship of Him. And this is what we're going to see with Abram all through Genesis. This is why God chooses an individual like Abram to preserve the messianic line that has always been planned from the very beginning of creation. Any comments on chapter 13?
When he mentions Hebron, is that later where King Saul?
Yeah, it'd be later for King Saul, yeah.
But for now,
Yeah.
it's a great tree in memory. And those other men, are they allianced with Abram and Mamre?
Well, the only ones we know so far is just the Amorites trying to align with him. But we're going to see other situations as well as we get on into later on in the book. Any other questions or comments? All right, let's look then at chapter 14. We have maybe about 7 minutes. I put up here Abram as the blessed again. And that, of course, if you look at your handout, that's also the title on your handout. A lot of times I used his title because they were okay. The key verse that he put down was Genesis 14, verses 18 and 19. And then if you look at the lessons that we will see in this, in Roman numeral 4, but what we'll do is we'll begin talking a little bit about this chapter, because this chapter begins with a list of kings who went to war with each other. And this is the first time that biblical events are expressly coordinated with external history, as well as the Bible's first mention of war. But to date, none of the kings listed has been definitely identified in sources outside of the Bible. I don't care whether you look at Josephus or anything else, you will not see it mentioned outside the Bible, these kings' names, okay? Their names suggest a very wide area from the Black Sea to the Persian Gulf. The whole Mesopotamian valley, all of what later is Babylon and Ashur, okay? One explicitly comes from Elam, which is a part of modern Iran, and another from Shinar, which is part of modern Iraq. The other two are probably from Turkey. The historical situation of several powers rather than one only fits the Middle Bronze Age, Abram's horizon. Bera, king of Sodom, and Bersha, king of Gomorrah, are compounded with the Hebrew words for evil and wicked, a trait fitting for the kings of these two cities. The Salt Sea, which is the Dead Sea that I showed you on that map, is so called because its average 32% saline content is about 10 times more than the 3% average of the oceans. That's how salty it is. That's why absolutely nothing can live in it. Even the Great Salt Lake in Utah is saltier than the oceans. And the only thing you find living in the Great Salt Lake, if you've ever flown over it, you'll see these big spots of red, just solid red. It's brine shrimp. Not fit to eat, but that's what's in that Great Salt Lake. Because it's so salty, nothing else will live in there. But you can see that we have a lot of fish in these oceans, of which is surviving in only 3% saline content, where the Dead Sea is 32%. So, these kings rebelled then. After serving Chedorlaomer for 13 years, they rebelled. This rebellion was the refusal to pay an annual tribute, which would have been required as they served him. Look at verse 4 for just a moment. I'll read that real quick. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer. In the 13th year they rebelled. Okay? It implies that the Dead Sea kings had been defeated in battle then. Okay? And so that's what we know here. That's verses 2 through 4 of chapter 14. So let's, Ron, you want to go ahead and read verses 2 through 4? Read 1 as well, 1 through 4.
Came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Eric, king of Elasar, Chelamar, king of Elam, and Paddle, king of nations, that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinar, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All these joined together in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and the 13th year they rebelled.
No, I knew Ron could
Yeah.
say those names. So.
Well, he just
That's better.
So here's the point. You won't find those names outside of the Bible. They've been destroyed. There's nothing good about them. Okay, but this is what we're going to look at. Abram is blessed again, but we have the kings here in that made war. And then you look at specifically at verse 5, it says, in the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him came and attacked the Rephaim in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zerim in Ham, the Emim in Shebab, and Kirathim. These were the kings that were with him. And we'll talk about that next week, since that was the second battle.
So, where did it stop?
Sorry, that was
He
the
stopped at 5.
14.
fourth battle.
Oh, 14.
Genesis chapter 14.
Yes,
So according to that, Sharon, because he's
Probably go back to the beginning.
I gave the sheet, I
We
gave the
need to
piece
start
of
off to
paper
get
to
the
Eric.
gist of it.
You know, I was just thinking about, they had Canaan,
We took food
because
to her
of
today,
the
so she didn't
evil
need
ways
to
that Austin had taken in.
When people take food,
Yeah.
they take enough for
No, they're laughing
that
back.
way you can
But
run
everything
that.
was about
They coordinate
how
with
much
Eric.
faith you got in God, because you didn't do anything with, at least back then.
But
you
she
did.
is doing better. She went to the doctor today. The doctor said that she's making so much progress with these new medications. It was even hard to tell if she's diabetic.
wow.
Wow.
Gotta make a difference, huh? Changing.
Well, I've been trying to get her to change doctors for a long, long time. And finally, she did it. Well, her son did it for her, I guess. And so it's helping her a lot.
That's good. Okay.
Oh, your eyes.
Brother, I talked to Sharon this morning, and she said that
It just blurs.
John had that
No, you had the other one done.
Oh, man.
This was the last one I done, and it's still not healed.
and
He said I
but the
didn't
doctor
have
that night said told him to stay
Oh,
off
he's
of
gotta
it
wait.
until he looked at him again and saw him again.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's the
And
one, the first
Sharon
one
said
is
she
the
was
better
still
It is.
sick herself,
And it was my worst time.
and she was babysitting some grandchildren, and she was rather in a way.
Pretty good vision.
Appreciate that.
She asked me to tell you.
It is.
Okay. Yeah, we'll let us know.
Since you read tonight, I thought, okay, I think she's doing better because she's reading tonight.
But you know, it's still, things still, it's a little difficult, but I think as soon as I get me some glasses, it's kind of.
Oh, yeah, that'll make a huge
He said I
difference.
just need my phone.
Yeah. Well, you need them in for both eyes, or who knows yet?